those other daddies or any of their issues. Oh, here come people. Here they come. Those other daddies or any of their issues. Oh, I was like, what is that? It's me talking. Oh, here come people. Okay, bye, Anna. Okay, great. Where did Samantha go? Where are you? Oh, here you are. You're at the top. I'm just gonna spotlight you so everyone can see your face. Samantha is a part of our team now. That's so exciting to get to say. And Amy was kind of sharing yesterday because Samantha did this exact same talk for Access. Like what? It's been a while. Would you say it was like last year, Sam?
Probably.
Probably last year. A background in like investigative journalism. So she's gonna show us today what she does to really deep dive into properties and figure out all the things that everyone needs to know. And Amy's favorite thing was like, that girl finds things that no one can find. And I was immediately interested because should I ever decided I want to go another route, I love sitting behind the computer and just trying to look at chain of title and figure out what's going on with houses. So I'm super nerdy and excited for this morning. So I'm gonna turn it over to Sam. Sam, I'm assuming you've got like a bit of a presentation or something to walk us through. But if you guys have questions, I'll be watching the chat. So just ping and Sam, I'll monitor that for you while we're on.
All right, sounds good. Can I
Mm.
share my screen?
Yeah, 1 second. Let me give you capability to do that. You can now share your screen.
Okay. Can everyone see that okay? Can you still hear me?
I know
Yeah,
you're
we
muted.
don't see your screen.
Hold on.
Okay, hang on. Ah, got it.
Oh, perfect.
Now
Amazing.
we can see your screen.
Let me move this out of the way so I can get to that.
I know. I always feel like navigating around Zoom is the hardest part of it all.
It's a little difficult. I'm not really
Um,
used to doing it either. So just really quick, this is kind of a quick rundown of how to find facts on your next transaction. It's not like I'm not going to go super in depth because if I did that, we'd be here all day. But I'll show you some quick tips, and then if you guys have questions, you can let me know. One of the things that I did for this presentation was I tried to put two of my difficult properties in there that we had some struggles with, and then kind of walk you through how we fixed it. So just a little bit about me. I worked as a news producer for nearly 10 years. Then I had kids. They are cute and they're fun. So one of the things I always start with is that researching property always starts with understanding public records. Every record has a different source based on the type of record. So if you're thinking like the deed is going to be Register of Deeds, but you'd be surprised you might be able to find something else there too. It's just a matter of finding the correct place to go to find the type of record. So sometimes if you're lost, you can just Google search, where would I find this? And you'd be able to find like, oh, it would give you a tip as to where in the county you could possibly find something. So I usually start, and I know you can go into CRS and just click to where you can get into the county data. I usually start here because it gives me so much information. I can track down the lot number, I can track down the PIN number. All of this is going to be really important as you continue through the research process, which I'm sure most of you know, but you can kind of see that it gives you most of everything that you need. So your deed date and your book and page for the deed, but these PIN numbers and things like that can take you a little bit further. So most real estate records, including deeds, plats, community details, if you can't find HOA stuff and or covenants on your property, but you know you probably have some, you need to do a more in-depth search. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. I don't know why, but it's just one of those things There are also easements and restrictions. So one of the places that you can find those is always going to be your Register of Deeds office. And if you click on the Register of Deeds office, you can go straight there and we can do a little bit of research. For the geographic information, including zoning maps, septic well information, sewer and water maps, you're going to go to GIS and you're going to turn on the different layers. So septic well information, all of that, turn on the different layers. We actually had one property that we were trying to sell out in Fuquay that had a sewer line running through it, and it wasn't selling because none of the builders wanted to take on the sewer line running directly through the middle of the property. Then we found out that the sewer line was actually in the middle of a floodplain, so that wasn't going to work either way. But it kind of just depends on where you're going to figure that out. So that's always GIS maps. County, always make sure that the city doesn't have a map as well. A lot of people go to the county and they don't realize that the city might also have a map. And that's going to tell you more about the city zoning, all of the information that you're going to need from that. Now, when you do city zoning, you need to open up the city's UDO, which is their Uniform District Organization or something. So once you open up their UDO, follow what the zoning is and try and track what you can actually put in that property. Because if somebody's asking you, can I build a shed or can I build, anything they want to put in the property, you need to know that because there might be something there that it won't work. Court proceedings attached to a property, including foreclosures, condemnations, estates, divorces, judgments, and liens. You can access those at your county or state clerk of court. So check that out. I actually found out that one of my clients was divorced. He didn't tell me. And he had gone through bankruptcy. Didn't tell me. So we were able to kind of check that out. And I brought it to his attention. And he's like, yeah, I am divorced. And I'm like, okay, is your wife on this deed? Because I could see her name there and I had to track it down. And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, I'm going to tell you she is. And he was shocked to learn that his wife got put on the deed and he was going to owe her to get out of that house. So he wasn't thrilled, but we had to actually track down his wife through Facebook because he had not been in contact with her for over 6 years. So really quick, we're going to go through just some properties that we went through together, Amy and I actually, and just kind of show you the process. So 8712 New River, this one was actually a pretty simple one that we did. We pulled the HOA docs from the Register of Deeds, the septic permit and all of that. So this one wasn't really that hard. One of the things that we did run into was a road maintenance agreement. There's some issues with finding road maintenance agreements, but you can actually find those on the Register of Deeds as well. They're just a little more difficult. You kind of gotta, I always say the first place to start is read the deed. If you read the deed, it will point you to where these things are. So if there is a road maintenance agreement in effect, it should be on the deed telling you that there's a road maintenance agreement, and it will point you to which book in the deeds register to look for. So you'll go in and you'll type that in at the Register of Deeds. So when you're doing plat maps, and this is specific to Wake County, if you're looking for a plat map, down in the bottom of your Register of Deeds search, if you click advanced, you can type in BM before, because in the deed, it's going to tell you the page number and where you can locate it. So you're going to type in BM before you get to, before you type in those numbers, and it'll bring up the plat map. I just found one that was from the 1920s doing this because I was able to track it down based on the deed. Now, by then the road names have changed. So I've got to kind of go in and figure out, used Google Maps. I overlaid the plat map and I figured out which roads were what. And then I was able to circle the lot number and make sure that that the deed was correct and everything was good. So that's just a really quick presentation. Now I'm just going to go through, I'm going to pick a house and we'll just go through and I'll show you what I found. Is there anybody that has a house that's given them hell?
We have a few, but they're in the Beaufort market. So if anybody's got Wake County, that would be great to jump in because I don't want to give you some Beaufort address that you won't be able to access. Anna, do you have anything that you guys can use as an example?
Sure. Hold on.
I was gonna say I have a listing for next week and it's in
Okay.
Wilson, but it's not in Wake County. So does Wilson count?
Which county is it in?
Wilson?
Wilson, is it Wilson?
Wilson County? Yeah.
So we'll just track it down.
Okay.
Cool. What's
So
the
we can
address?
get,
It's 4407 Davis Farm. I think it's Drive North.
okay.
Yeah.
4407, and I'll ask you for the rest as soon as I get where I'm going. Okay. So where it says certified copies of vital records, typically you can kind of go on there and they might have real estate stuff. Or I'm going to try this deed index online and click sign in as a guest.
Yeah, that's where I started.
Okay. So
I can
we're
give
gonna
you
go
the
with,
client's name if that's
you need,
easier.
okay, that's fine.
Last name Santiago, first name Roxanne. And Roxanne has an E at the end. Yes.
And you said it's Davis Farms, 4407 Davis Farms, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I've got two deeds here. One is just the deed of trust, which is their kind of when they got their mortgage, and one is the deed. So I'm going to open up the deed really quick and we're going to see what we can find.
And I'm really curious to know if there's an extra parcel with this property. So it's in a really small subdivision. I mean, there's no HOA or anything like that, but the seller was telling me that it was custom built, like this particular house was custom built, but there's an extra lot that came with his property. So I'm thinking maybe there could be an extra parcel, and that's kind of what I was going to research into today. So this is kind of perfect timing.
Okay, sounds good. So one of the things you'll notice about deeds is you're always going to see where it says property what herein above described was acquired by grantor by instrument recorded in book 2378, page 176. So that is going to be where you're going to find more information on the property. So you're going to go back to this register of deeds search and you're going to type in book and page. And then it says a map showing the above described property is recorded in Book of Maps, page 28. Book of Maps 28, page 116. So you can go further into depth just in this one website trying to find your Book of Maps to get it. So we're going to go back into the Wilson County. I usually just do multiple tabs and find it. So see where it says book page? You're going to click on that. It's going to ask you, what are you looking for? I'm going to look for real estate. I don't know what the pre-95 means, but we're going to go down the rabbit hole together. So it is saying page 28, book 28, page 116. Can she type? Okay, we're going to try a different one. Sometimes if you go into the tips and tricks, it'll tell you exactly what you need to do. Let's do property search. This is a This website is a little different than Wake County. It doesn't give me a
Hey,
book.
Sam, I bet the pre-95 is earlier than 1995, like their historical records. So I don't know if this transaction was pre-95 or not, but that might be why I didn't pull it.
Okay.
Well, I was also going to say props to you for being brave to do this because I do this all the time and there's a lot of quiet time and a lot of pausing because what you're doing is you're digging. There is no if for anybody that hasn't done this before, like when I said you don't want to do Beaufort County because you're not that familiar with it. Could you do it? Could you figure it out? Yeah. But a lot of this is doing research and just trying to get creative in the way that you use the system. And sometimes nothing comes up. Sometimes you have to just be so loose in your specifications that then you go weeding through a ton of information. But it really is it's a title search. That's why they call it that, right? We're an attorney state, a little different from you guys, but we do the same exact thing. You've got to go through old plat maps and old GIS mapping and old data to get to the answers you're looking for. And so I was just going to say props to being brave enough to go on and look for this. But I think the process is important to follow that. You don't just snap your fingers and get to it. It's really kind of a treasure hunt.
It is. And that's the thing. That's why it's really important to kind of start with your deed because you're going to be able to find your parcel number and you'll be able to kind of dig in a little deeper. You can go to GIS and see if the parcel number will bring up a map. And then once you have the map, sometimes it actually will have a link directly right there that you can click on that will take you to the original plat map. It just depends on the county. And every county does it differently, which is why it's such a pain in the butt. Because if you're like in the Raleigh market, for example, we're in Wake County, we're in Chatham County, we're in Harnett County, we're all over the place. So if we're going through things like this, then there's a reason. So I'm trying to get the parcel number. Can anybody remember that for me?
Anna, do you see the parcel number? Can you write it down?
I got it.
Hold
Do it the
on.
hard way.
I was going to put it in the chat. Did your brain just retain that number?
No, I actually just did a screenshot of it and put it. You guys
Something
can
like
see
that.
that.
You should have said yes. You should have been like yes.
You guys couldn't see that. So they're saying, and there's another parcel connected to it. Where did they say? Was it on the left or the right part of the property or behind it?
On the right side of the property.
Okay. So what I'm seeing right here is there's a 4407 and there's a 4405 that's kind of connected. Okay.
Okay.
So maybe that's what they're talking about. We can definitely look, see where it says plat reference. We can look and see what this brings up.
Okay.
See 28, page 116. Here's your image. It's thinking. My computer does not like being on Zoom and all these other places at once. So right here, we're looking at, we got to go back and find our lot number from our Register of Deeds search. Sorry, I'm looking for the right tab. I know I go too fast. So lot number 2 in Davis Farms. So, and it says lot 3. So it's connecting both of these. So lot 2 and 3 are your parcels that you're going to be looking at. And that's these right here. So this is your map, and this will tell you kind of everything that you need to know about that. Here's where we can go even a little deeper. So it says final plat. You can actually look, if you read some of this information next to it, it'll give you more areas that you can go and search and find more information about the plat and more information about maybe who built it and what went down, all of that. Okay.
Nice.
So that's a way to kind of get everything that you need. Now I can email this to you after we get off if you want to put your email in the chat. And then
that would be awesome. Yes.
So you can start there.
Oh, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. Any other questions? Anyone else got a hard one? We'll just keep going.
Great job.
So one of the things, I'll go to Wake County really quick. And I'm going to show you one of the properties that I had a difficult time with because my client didn't actually know that there were covenants on their property. And that was a shock to them. Now, one of the things that I will do, and this is a little trick that I've learned, I do all of this research before I go to a listing appointment. And the reason I do it is because I can get the listing. I never fail to get the listing because I come in with something they didn't know about their property. So that usually helps me, but it's really up to you guys what you want to do. You can wait and do it after. I just prefer to do it this way. If I go back in here, I'll be able to find one. So, little tip, if you're looking for HOA documents and you know what the subdivision is, we could pick a subdivision and you put it in either grantor or grantee. It really doesn't matter. Put it in either box and it's going to bring up a whole ton of information on the subdivision, and you just have to track it down by the lot number of the property. So let's just pull an example really quick. Let's see. I'm gonna have to go into my dot loop really quick and get the address because I can't remember it off the top of my head. Does anybody struggle to find HOA documents?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think it's hard because if I don't know if it's the subdivision name homeowners association or homeowners or whatever.
I get that. This is, oh, it's stuck.
And I also think it's sometimes hard for people to know how many amendments are floating out there. So can you talk about amendments too?
Yeah, so when you do this search, you're gonna see all of them. Now, it'll be hard to track down which ones are what, but you can do it all by the lot number. So when you're going through them, it takes a long time, I'll be honest. When you're going through them, you'll be able to track it down, but you have to find the right lot number and see if it's attached to that amendment. Because like my subdivision, for example, has amendments for the beginnings of the neighborhood and for the end of the neighborhood. So the lot numbers are different and you can't figure out which one is what. But if you track it, you got to take your time. You can find it. Usually when I'm doing HOA documents, those take me the longest because I have to go through every one and make sure the lot number is not listed. Now, typically on Register of Deeds, you'll have the amendment will in the information sheet, it'll say for lot numbers blank to blank, and that will help you find it. But if it doesn't, you have to actually open each individual document, which is a pain. Okay, so this one was 2036 McBurney Drive, and I was really struggling to find really a lot of things on this property, but I was able to kind of track stuff down through the deed, and that helped me go a little bit further into it. One of the things that I was able to find was the covenants, which she didn't even know they had, and they actually were what. Because one of the things that I noticed when we went into the neighborhood is every single house was either modular or I'm losing words here, but they were all kind of those modular homes, and I was like, that's interesting. So I was able to find that whenever we went through and find out that yeah, the whole area had to have modular homes. They were not allowed to build site built. So that made it a little interesting. All right. So I'm going to do the deed and then we'll go from there. Didn't remember 19636 11. Just search it. I'm not seeing half my screen. Hang on. There we go. So you go through the deed again and you'll be able to find, here's the plat book. And actually on the plat book, it said there were covenants for the property. So on the plat map, I was able to kind of track down that number. So we'll go to the plat map and find it. Now something else is in the way. So in Wake County, it says down here, search for maps. If you put the BM before it, you can find the map. Pages 1342 and 1343. Can she find the right tab? Are you guys able to see everything? I know I'm going really fast.
No, you're doing great. This is super helpful.
Okay.
I keep having to move the whole thing because the Zoom call is in the way. Okay, here's your plat map. So we'll pull that up. Now, this lot was lot, I think 15. I don't really remember, but that didn't really matter at the time because I wasn't looking for that. I was looking for something else. And I was able to pull it says deed book, book of maps, and then on the right-hand side somewhere it said where you could find covenants. And I was shocked to find them. For now, we know the subdivision name, and I can go in and find it through there because that's what I wanted to show you guys anyway. We'll go back. Now, when you're searching in Wake County, one of the things that annoys me is it will bring up what you're looking for. And then if you go back and then click something else, it will actually delete that tab and just start the tab over, which is annoying. So Windy Hill subdivision, we knew it was kind of built in 2002, so we can look here. And Bannister Properties was the builder. You can look on that for the plat map and you can figure that out. And then it says restrictions. This is where I was able to find that. And we pulled it up and it said, deep in here, it said this is supposed to only allow for those types of the modular homes. No manufactured house, but it said only modular. So that blew my clients away because they didn't know it. And I was able to land that listing a lot faster than, like, I pretty much walked out of there with the listing agreement signed. I walked out of there with everything ready to go to list their property. And they loved me because they thought I was some expert when really I was just tracking down details that was just public records on their property. So that kind of is what makes it stand out because you're able to, I'm going to stop screen sharing. If I can figure out how. Do you guys know how?
To stop screen sharing?
Yeah.
Hold on. I think I can kick you out. Oh, maybe not. I did it.
You did it. That's nice. Okay. Because I kept getting pulled into other directions. So that's how you can find it. If you have trouble with it, I don't mind if you guys call me and just ask me for help. I tend to be able to find stuff really a lot quicker than most people because I'm used to doing this. I do it on every single property. So that kind of helps too. Were there any questions?
Just talking out loud, Allison. So we have a coordinators on the back end that do some of that stuff, but maybe our coordinators can help with that stuff on the front end. Because I'm just trying to think of one that I just listed, and my people thought there were no covenants, and literally in the past 48 hours discovered that there were because they put no on the documents and they don't remember receiving them and stuff like that. But it might just help I'm just trying to think, Lisa, to do a quick search or something.
Yeah, no, I think that it's definitely something we can ping, but I also think from an agent standpoint, this is something that I think agents don't do is they like you should always double check, never take the MLS for like unless you just know the neighborhood, you've got to double check. And then I also
Yep.
think buyer standpoint, because you're talking more of a listing standpoint, like I know so many agents that do not send over the covenants and restrictions when their buyers go under contract. Like I honestly want them signed. I will put them into Skyslope and send them over for initial just to say like, look, I had you sign this so that in a year when you go to build and you think you're going to go and call a custom builder and you find out you can only put a modular home on the property, now all of a sudden they turn around and try to sue you because you didn't give them the correct information, you know? And the MLS said no covenants and everything said no covenants, but at what point are we not doing our job by trying to at least just information? So sometimes, I mean, this took 20 minutes and that was you walking through. Once you get good at it, it's 5 minutes popping in and just looking and doing a little bit of digging and seeing what comes up because we're an attorney state. We expect our attorneys to do all of this.
Hmm.
They
They
don't.
don't. They
Yeah.
don't.
And I will be honest, I make them sign every single thing I give to them. Every
I would
single
too.
thing. They
Throw it
either
in there, have
initial
them
or sign it
Yep.
because I want to make sure that I'm covering my butt. Like this is the best way to cover your butt is to make sure that you're doing every single bit of research that you can on a property before you either show the property or go into that property. Now, you can't do it for every showing. I understand that because that's just going to take you forever. But if your client shows interest in the property, don't just hand them what the MLS has, the documents that the listing agent provided, because I promise you, like 90% of agents aren't going this deep and they're
No.
not figuring out.
I do think it's worth noting, like for us, we've got different neighborhoods, but like if it's a Shadow Moss, that was a DR Horton community that, you know what I mean? Like the property's changed hands 4 or 5 times over the last 10 years. You've got a house to the left, a house to the right, a house behind it, a house in front of it. You know the covenants and restrictions. Like that is not as high of a priority for me as maybe those neighborhoods. Like we've got one called Royal Pines. And what people don't realize is that there are covenants and restrictions on those properties, but there are some that right across the street, they've been like annexed out, but it still feels like Royal Pines. And so then you make these assumptions that you can put the fence up, you can put the privacy fence up. Well, the house across the street has one, so I can have one. No, that's not the case. And so there are nuances in your neighborhoods and there are nuances in your areas that this is where you have to just be, when people say, our guy last week was like, you got to eat, sleep, and breathe real estate, right? Like this is what they mean. They don't mean spending every waking hour of what you're doing. They just mean you have to get very good at understanding your market and all the nuances in and out and understanding your neighborhoods and stuff. And I think that, especially if you're new, that's why we say go and analyze the market on MLS for the first 30 minutes of the day. Go and look. Like I'll look at a neighborhood and there's 5 houses in the neighborhood and each house has a different HOA amount. Like one says the HOA is 100, one says it's 200, one says it's 125. And it's like, agents are just pulling data that's old data. And so we do, as buyers agents, have to do our research to know what we're actually getting our client into.
Yeah. And I will say, like, when I get the HOA, when I get the R codes, if it does have a number to call for the HOA, I call them. I ask, do they have a transfer fee? Because sometimes that's not listed in the R codes, but the number is. I ask if they have the amount of the payment for that property every time, because you don't know. And then I ask, this is the most important question for you to ask an HOA. Are there any issues or development coming soon? Is the HOA planning to build a park? And are the neighbors going to be responsible for paying for it? Is there a problem with something in the backyard of one of the properties that is actually in a landscape easement that's going to have to be taken care of by the HOA? Maybe a tree fell and that's expensive. Can I see the budget? Because you can ask that. You can ask that. An HOA is legally required to give interested buyers a budget to tell them what exactly is going on in the neighborhood. I had one person really interested in a condo in Cary, and all of the condos you got to the property, every condo there looked like it needed a new roof. So, okay, we need to call the condo association and figure out, are they going to be putting new roofs on it and when? What's going to be the amount that the clients are going to have to pay whenever they start doing this? Because they always come out with some special decision that they've got to do to pay for those roofs. How much is it going to be and when? The condo association said, we actually don't have the money to do that at all. And we were going to assess a huge fee to every person who owned a condo, asking for money to do that. My client decided not to buy that condo because he didn't want to deal with that amount of fees. So it really is going to be, it's up to you to try your best to find the information. Because if you're not trying your best in finding the information, then you could be on the hook for it. And it's a disservice to your client. That's why it's really important whenever you're going through this process, just put together a checklist for each property. Like when you're looking at the MLS, okay, I see there's an association. I need to give that association a call. Put together a checklist so that you're aware of what you need to do, because every property is different. So if you don't have a checklist individualized for that property, then you're not going to have all the information that you need. And if you can't put together the checklist, call me, call Anna, call somebody to ask for help to figure out what the checklist needs to be so that you're aware and you can start finding that information. If you have trouble finding the information, call me. It's okay.
Awesome. Does anybody else have anything?
Samantha, do you put anything when you're listing a property? Do you put any different documents in your listing that some people don't?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, like, you have standard documents in there, but I was just curious if you added, like, because you do all this digging, do you add any of that in your document section, or do you just keep that for your?
Yeah, usually what I'll do is I actually, if I'm going to a client's house, I go ahead and try and print everything out and provide it to them. So if I have new covenants that they didn't know about, I try and provide it to them. In that meeting, I have them initial it saying that I gave it to them, even if they're the seller, because they're getting information from me on their property. And that's part of that education process can be part of their disclosures. So when they're filling out that ARP code later, they have all this information that I provided them, makes it easier for them to do the ARP codes. They can answer those questions by themselves because now they have their deed in front of them. They have their covenants in front of them. They have if I can get the budget from the HOA fast enough, they have that, and they can put it all together and put everything on the ARP codes and answer those questions correctly. And then I have them initial it, and I make copies of those whenever I come back to the property if I can. Or if not, I'll put it in I actually will put one of the, like, Amy and I used to put the notebooks together. Just do that. Does that make sense?
And
So,
I've had an attorney tell my client that they were not a part of the HOA, and they were.
Yeah, attorneys can really screw you. Don't trust them. I mean, it's the truth. Like they do what they can to get you where you need to be, but they're 90% of the time they're not going as deep. And that's the thing. Like if they're not doing it, then it's kind of up to you.
Thanks, Samantha.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Does anybody feel like they learned something new?
Yes, this was really helpful. We really appreciate it. Obviously this is recorded as well, so we'll make sure that we can always go back if you ever need it. It'll be on our YouTube page as well. And then I don't want to ever shout out, people and say that they're always available, but I'm sure if you need anything, Samantha is always available. And Anna and I are always resources as well. And so I think this was great info and we really appreciate it.
Yep, I put my number in the chat for you guys. If you guys need help, just call me. It's on the Everything for Anna Powell team. So
Yeah.
call me. Okay.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much, guys.
Sam.
Make it
This
a
was
wonderful
awesome.
Wednesday.
Thank you.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Next week, we're just
Bye.
going to cover some topics you guys have questions on. So get those over to us so we can have a really lively, robust discussion.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Janita, I'll send that over to you.
Thank you.